the junior high school.
That's, I started, yeah, that was junior high, ninth, eighth, seventh, eighth, and ninth, right? Seventh, eighth, and ninth?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So they were still, I was wondering how long they kept that, because I didn't think it worked out very well. That they kept the high school, just a 3-year high school. Because that was no fun. I wanted to
Must
give
have
them,
been that way when I, because I had the 7th grade, no,
Somebody else
freshman
ready to go?
year,
Yes?
town hall.
Jump right in.
I can tell you a little bit about the
I
history.
didn't become
My grandfather
you know,
and his
a
brother
high
built the
school.
building, Fred Murray.
right.
I have the dedication, it was in Fred Murray's attic. He obviously had folded it up. He not only was the builder, but he was the chairman of the building committee. I think it might have been a conflict of interest, but he had his brother working with him too, and it's all down here in
What year?
1912. It was completed in 1912, and there's a picture here of the acceptance photo of the building before the town threw the flag or anything.
Seniors Fenway Park.
Yeah. And the building was built similar to the town hall. The town hall was built by their father, my great-grandfather, William D. And you probably don't know this, but this building was built similar to what the town hall is today. The roof was bolted on, timbered for a second floor, and because the town hall originally had a ballroom upstairs. And this was built the same way. So the roof is bolted on. It was supposed to be lift up in years to come, and a second story put on here. And that's why you got the front vestibule, the large front vestibule, and the side two. The reason there's the cement steps that come up like this was that the girls' side was over here and the boys' side was over here, and they tied the old building, which was on the corner of Scott Dyer and Ocean House Road, onto the back of the building. That was the Pond Cove School.
So that's this part of the building right
That's
here?
why you had the differential in the back of the building with the cement work, with the steps.
Yeah.
Because then they added the building on, it actually was a separate one, but yet there was a corridor went down the middle. And that was the third room. There was 2 rooms.
Right, these two and that one.
And the boys went in the room and then went down the stairs and around the corner, and they had the urinals, and the girls went in that side. So the time being growing with the, what you might call the sardine factories. That's what happened to the second floor on this one. They started building buildings with flat roofs, like the Pond Cove School next door, which was opened in 1956. 49, excuse me. 49. So this, I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I had town hall, I had sub-primary 1st and 2nd. I believe the 2nd was there, in where the registration bureau is.
Yep.
And I had Miss Knapp, Miss Webb, and Miss Wormwood, I believe, yeah. And Miss Blake was the town nurse. We had our dental work, all the fluoride treatments in the front hall here.
Yeah.
So we had a full-time nurse. And it basically was, and I went over to the junior high, was in the top, to the upstairs of the town hall. That
Was
was
that
6th,
just-
7th,
oh, that's 6th,
7th, and 8th. And 9th was in the high school, 9th, 10th, and 11th,
The 1930s building.
the 30s building, yeah.
Molly, I've got a question for Jerry. The town hall was built originally as to be a school, wasn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
no, town office.
It was a
With
town
the
office.
school, because they.
With the school,
so they
okay.
separated the town from Cape, South Portland separated.
Right.
And the fire department.
And we lost the municipal building, which was now South Portland School. That was down behind the grocery store by the cemetery. Down here, just across the line, Cape Line.
Okay,
You took it right, it's gone now. They built a school, flat, sardine
Okay.
factory type school. And so they needed a town hall. They were meeting in the Sprague Hall. That's where all the town, other than the records and stuff, they were
Yeah.
just, they were everywhere. And they feared for security of the records. And they were kept in my grandmother's house. She was selectman and fire chief and everything else, so they kept them in the basement of the Murray house. And then, so they built the town hall.
okay.
And then they had the school, high school was in the town hall, upstairs.
Did the basketball court there?
upstairs.
Yes.
That was the minstrel shows were upstairs, they had all that other stuff upstairs, you know. I mean, that was the dance hall. It was a
Yeah.
beautiful building.
Yeah,
But originally, that wasn't there. They added that 10 years later.
Yeah.
So basically, the upstairs, as I knew it, in the 6th, 7th, and 8th, was the front of the building over the town offices. Just the front of the building. And then they put that second building on with the two wing walls like here.
yeah.
Boys and girls entrance. And then they moved there was an auditorium upstairs. They moved it down and made classrooms up there, because 6th, 7th, and 8th, we had Miss Bertha Story was the principal. And then we had Miss Edwards, Guy Rowe, Betty White, and can't remember the last name.
That's pretty good, though. That's a good list.
And that's basically, I've lived here all my life.
And
I
the
lived
fire
right behind,
trucks
I
were
lived the
stored
house
in
they
the
tore down for
basement
the
of
library.
the town hall.
And I bought Durwood Holman's house and put a 3-story addition on it. So I moved from across the street to this side. And I've been in the fire department 50 years. Retired.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I think that's a wrap.
And the school children would hang on the railings and
course.
watch the trucks
Of
go
course
up.
I would.
We'd go on the playground if it was recess time. They tried to get the kids in, but a lot of them didn't want to go. So it was a little bit scary, and that's in 1952, they moved across the street to the building they tore down for the police station.
Right.
Hose drying tower still on.
And the hose drying. And that is one of the kind, because canvas holes went out of the BM, but canvas holes would rot with moisture. So they had to hang it after every fire.
Very interesting.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. Jim was a fireman too.
In relation to what he said, that's my father.
Yes.
Can you tell?
I'm William Murray, and I went to school here in 1974,
And what grade were you in?
4th grade. Mr. Holbrook was my teacher, and he was the best teacher that I ever had. And my classroom was just about where we're sitting now. The only thing I can remember is he allowed us to put Wacky Pack stickers on the closet door, and we were being the last class. He tried to buy the door from the town so he could keep the door, because it was covered with stickers, covered, but they wouldn't allow him to buy it. So the door must have gone with the school.
Really?
Yeah.
Nobody else knows where
Town
that door went.
officials, you know how
I
that
was gonna
is.
say, some
Yeah,
town officials must know where
priorities,
that
you know.
door went.
That's pretty much all I.
I went here in the 4th and 5th grade, and I believe it was 1953 and 54, although one of my classmates tells me I'm wrong. It's been a couple of years since we were here, but I was in the room over here in the 4th grade, and I believe it was Mrs. Burns, and I can't remember who I was in the 5th grade, but it was the room that was back there, and I guess
Mrs.
the old part.
Stearns.
The old
Mrs.
Mrs. Stearns was
Well, I
the
had
5th grade
Mrs.
teacher.
Stearns, but I had Mrs. Burns.
I had Mrs. Burns in the 4th grade.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Stearns was.
Mrs. Stearns was the 5th grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's about what I remember. I remember the school quite well, but he's given more information than I could possibly give about the building. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us how old you are?
And I went to four years in this school. I never stayed back, even though there were just 3 rooms, because they must have changed
Yes.
it. I was here in kindergarten with Mrs. Ruth Klisch, and I was here with Miss Webb on the 3rd, and Mrs. Knapp on the 4th, and Ruth Austin, who was also in Joe and our class, was my teacher, and she blamed the pregnancy of her next son, Mark, on our class. She said that we beat her down. It was a very difficult class, but that's not true. And we had, there were a couple of us probably, I'm very happy that the new plans look more like the old building.
Oh, good.
Yes, I
The
second
original
that.
plans, which I wasn't happy with, looked like a Walgreens. It was a wonderful school and it was a wonderful town, and it is. I've lived every single day of this white hair on Ocean House Road.
Amen.
And I'm either an extremely stable woman or in a hell of a rut. But I think they're a wonderful place to live no matter what. And there's a wonderful camaraderie across. There was always this side of town and that side of town.
The British side.
Yes, we were informed that we were the working side.
Farmers.
And fishermen. Yeah, right? But the kids all came together at sixth grade. Sixth, Sharon? Sixth grade.
I don't know, I was in Rockland for the sixth.
I
Six.
went after I went to first and second over in the addition over the Pond Cove, and then I was in sixth in the town hall, and in seventh we carried as much as we could carry and marched from the town hall to the new junior high. And at that time there was the dance hall and the gymnasium and everything on the third floor. Downstairs here was just bathrooms, but you went in and out of the playground on the girls' and boys' side, and then it was a bomb shelter. You went to the basement and you covered and duck and covered. Yeah.
Where was the playground?
So,
It's still back there?
yeah.
Used to play
And
kickball
it's,
against that wall.
I'm interested in, I have grandchildren in the school department, so it isn't like I'm anti-library, but I want to be able to, I'd be very happy to be pulled out of my house feet first when I have to be, and I don't want to spend more than is wise.
I appreciate that input.
Did I say that better?
You wanna tell us about the first time you went to the bomb shelter? in the
Well, we
boys?
won't talk about
The
that.
boys'
I did not know at the last meeting we were being televised.
Oh.
And I said a word that I wouldn't have said on TV, which I've already heard here, so that's okay.
What word was that?
What?
What word was that?
Urinal. I said, somebody said, I heard you say that. I said, where? They said, on television. I had no idea. But there are a number of our classmates that we graduated in '61. My dad graduated in '28. My son, who's the fire chief down South Portland, graduated '85. My grandson, who lives next door to me, will graduate next year, Lord willing. I asked his sister how his grades, and she goes, and she's only 10. So, we've all lived next to each other, and it's been a blessing, and it's like John Boy, you know. And I think this building is lovely. I know it needs repair. The Historical Society is happy to be going to the police department, or what, Joe?
Well, we're accepting it.
It's temporary.
It's temporary.
Somebody should use it.
Yeah, it's a nice building.
Air conditioning,
Yeah, it's a good thing.
And
It's
brick and mortar.
brick and mortar, right.
because for the number of people in this town and the number of very usable structures, we're very fortunate for the number of people. When you look at other towns, you're looking at entirely different population. So, there you go.
Grade, 1960 and 1961. Joni told most of our story. You were asking for individual stories of the building, and I can give you one. In 5th grade, come Washington's birthday time, our class put on a play. And as the roles were being assigned, George Washington and all the important people were given to other people. So as my name didn't get called, so it was very clear that I was being relegated to extra status. But finally my name was called, and I was to become Jean Kerr. He was a French woodsman, and his job during the American Revolution was to recruit Indians with whom he dealt, with whom he traded. And I had one line in the whole production, and it was, "Surely you jest." Well, I said, okay, I'm going to deliver the best "Surely you jest" that the theater arts had ever seen. So I practiced, and I tried emphasizing different words. Surely you jest, surely you jest, surely you jest. And that's kind of what I wound up with. It was kind of a "surely you jest" with a kind of a devious chuckle at the end. So the play went off without a hitch, and the funny part, the really funny part though, was that as part of my get-up, I had a Civil War musket, which today, if you brought a Civil War musket to school, number one, you'd be expelled. You'd be sent for a psychiatric evaluation, and you'd probably be removed from your family. But, those were different times, and you can pass it around if you like. I also have a picture of my 5th grade class. Several of them are still in the neighborhood. I was the only kid in the class with glasses, so if you'd like to pass that around. And if you really want a chuckle, there's my individual picture.
It's adorable.
Handsome young man. Come on. You didn't do a French accent, though.
No.
You didn't do that. Surely you just.
Yeah, surely you jest.
In a line here at this school, and we're all going to get shots. And we're lined up, you know, it was like military style. And by the way, when Mrs. Armstrong, early 60s, Mrs. Armstrong would read her stories or do her thing, almost everybody in the class would be like this and listen to it and go 20 minutes without talking. Does this happen now? Is this possible that this would happen to in a 4th, 5th grade class? 4th, 5th? I can't imagine that it could. Maybe it does, but it surprised me. Anyway, these kids were lined up. We were lined up, boys and girls. And they would take one boy, one girl back and forth. And you had the nurse and the whole thing. And they were very efficient, official people at this time. I don't know if it's, you know, early 60s and we're still worried about the communists or what, but there's this rigidity to it, to this type of thing. Mrs. Armstrong wasn't rigid with certain things, but this type of activity was so rigid. We standing. So of course, somebody gets the shot and faints dead away. And we're standing there, and I'm thinking, dear God, you know, I hope I'm a strong enough soldier to make it through. And I get up there, and you know, it's really not that much to it for me. I mean, it wasn't the best, but some people have the phobias. They didn't care. The kid went over like cordwood, and it just carted this kid off, you know? And I can't imagine that that would happen today either, right? So, yeah, things, you know, the building changed, times change, and perhaps we need some other changes now. It's been a while. Maybe we're overdue for a change here at the library. I don't know. You remember that with the standing in the line?
I remember the state police coming to the town hall and fingerprinting everybody.
Oh yeah, fingerprinting everybody.
We went out and started scratching our fingers.
Oh, how about that? How about fingerprinting everybody?
Yeah. You would bring up a memory. We were going to cut our fingers in.
Oh yeah.
Some of the
Because
tough
you wanted
kids.
to be like, yeah, oh absolutely.
They're
That's
not gonna
very
catch
funny.
me.
No, I'm going to
I forgot the fingerprint.
What they've done so wrong, they don't want to be fingerprinted.
And by God, if you didn't stand up and say, you know, with the Pledge of Allegiance and be at, you know, at attention, right?
Yeah.
Take that
Oh, yeah,
hat
you
off,
behave
young
yourself.
man.
Bertha Story knew how to keep.
She did. I remember her. She was there forever.
Yeah, Mr.
Do we have
Stitchfield.
somebody else who'd like to speak?
It's Wormwood.
Somebody else had.
Marge did.
Ah, yes. And
brother did.
she was, first grade, kindergarten was at the town hall, and then, first, second, and third grade was here. And I don't remember a lot of details that didn't seem very important, but I had a real respect for Miss Wormwood and Miss Webb and Mrs. Knapp and all of
Miss Ferguson.
Miss Ferguson
Miss
was
Ferguson.
She was
yeah,
taking
at
credit.
that time, she was over,
With a knot, with
Yeah.
she was over the big
When
Yeah,
she came
she
over,
was
she
on
used
the
to
other
do
side.
standardized testing.
Oh.
She'd come over and do the testing with her big bun on.
Come over and oversee it.
And when I
Go.
came here today, I wanted to know, where was the nurse's office?
She also did the standardized.
In the
She said it was
glass.
out
Look out.
Over in here?
Yep.
Yep. And I don't know why that made a big impression. I ended up being a nurse for 55 years, so maybe that was part of it.
Didn't
No,
these teachers
because
go
when they
forever
had your
too?
fluoride
They
treatments.
just taught forever.
I did?
Yeah,
Yes, that was a big deal.
It was a long time ago.
it was a lot, yeah, you can't forget those.
And then I went back over to the town hall and I had Mrs.
Edwards. Miss Edwards.
Oh, well, that's another story.
She wrote on her card. She wrote on her card.
Yes, I heard that story.
Yeah, I don't repeat it. I don't know how long
Your brother does.
Oh, right on the side of the door, Miss
We were
Story loves
headed for
somebody.
trouble because we used to go from the town hall over to the high school gym.
Yeah,
And it was a very cold morning and we started. And somebody in our group wrote sentiment on Miss Edwards' car. And they had the police there and nobody would tell who did it. And I don't think they ever really solved that problem.
It might be time to revisit it.
Time to confess.
Might be time to fast. Fast out.
Oh, I might get into trouble again.
Yeah.
I think all the parties have come along to
Yeah, I think the
that.
statute of limitations are run out on
Yeah,
that
I
ride.
think we ate in the classroom. I remember eating in the classroom.
You're right.
And the milk was, they put the milk on the radiator sometime. Yeah.
So we had to have brought our own.
I don't know, I remember eating in the classroom.
yeah.
Wow.
Camera would always break.
I remember being 6 years old and they showed this film about the communists taking over and showing the world going red. China goes red, Russia goes red, and it's creeping toward us. And they show people with, bazookas and stuff, and they say, this could be, like I'm thinking, Cape Elizabeth doesn't seem like it's in danger. But, when you're 6,
Impressive.
propaganda set.
Eddie Windman had a real bomb shelter.
Yeah, bomb shelters.
A bomb shelter.
Bomb
I was impressed.
You guys had one? People,
Yeah, Fowler Road had two, Donnie Lee built two of them on there. On those houses at the end there, by Havel, on the south.
Would you like to say something?
The only thing I can add is that I spent from November to June in the 8th grade at Town Hall, being transferred. But I do remember the bell being up in the 8th grade classroom and hearing the sound of the fire bell. You'd hear the rope and then the clang, and then the fire engines would come out. And another thing I remembered, it was right after World War II, and I could look out at the breakwater. It's kind of grown up since then, and watch the dive bomber still practice coming down on that this big target out there on the breakwater that goes out to the island. And then I used to go out on my bicycle and pick up these practice bombs. So I remember quite a bit about, but then my folks bought a place in South Portland. It was quite an impression coming from a different place to this school.
Molly.
Thank you.
Enchanted childhood growing up on Ram Island Farm. My father worked there for 40 years.
And before we moved down onto the farm itself, we lived in the house across from Sprague Hall. And it had a driveway where you could go in the lower through the barnyard and out the other end. And when they moved the Thomas Memorial Library across the way, something went wrong, and they had to leave it right in between the two entrances. So I was out there guiding people to come in the lower, through the barnyard and out the upper, and one of them gave me a nickel. But I think, I don't quite remember going to school in this building, but I went in the other building, and it was across from Library Field, and then they moved it, but I understand at one point it was down beside Sprague Hall.
The Spurwink School building.
Yeah, the little one across the way.
Yeah.
But I think third grade, Miss Catherine Wormwood had us put our heads down on our arms as a quiet time, and she played classical music. And I'm trying, Bertha Story, the legendary Bertha Story. We were so sneaky. When it was test time, we'd pipe up about another part of the country, and of course she and her sister, I believe, used to take summer vacations where they'd go here and there, and we'd get her talking about one of her trips.
Forget to give you your quiz.
But I don't have a memory of going to school here. Is it early senility? I think from that building, during the war, wasn't it? They had split shifts over in the town hall building upstairs. And my desk was right beside the window, and the bushes and trees between me and the ocean were low enough so I could see ships coming down the line into Portland Harbor. So I think a lot of sixth grade English is a blur, because who's going to pay attention when the Wangaratta is coming down the line? And it's great, just watch them coming down. I wish I could, why didn't I write things down? My goodness, I'm running into the same thing at Ram Island Farm, putting together pictures. I've been taking pictures for 70 years, and I have a whole bridge table full of boxes of pictures. I've given some to the Historical Society. You probably all remember the causeway that was so beautiful. It wound through over a brook down below the entrance to Bob and Millie Monks' house before you get to Crescent Beach State Park. And then it was straightened to hurry the tourist to Crescent Beach State Park. But the trees used to meet overhead, and it was gorgeous. And I think I gave copies of that to the Historical Society. But my memories of where I went from grades 1, 2, and 3 in that building across the way, where did I go? Gosh. Was it the building just down the road? Was that 4th and 5th? Well, it seems to me 4th and 5th and 6th was the upstairs in the town hall building. Is that correct? I think so.
You see the picture of the grade schools?
Yeah.
7th, 8th, and 9th?
I think so. Oh.
Jerry, Marjorie graduated.
Yes. Well, just one comment. One interesting thing about going to school in Cape Elizabeth up until 1963 was Fort Williams was an active base, and we had a lot of transient families. We had families that would move in for a year or two. You'd have them in their class, and then they'd be gone. Much more so than now. I mean, we still have people moving in and out of town, naturally, but back then it was more prevalent. I was looking at my class picture, and several of those kids, I think, were probably military kids who were just here for a very short time and then moved on.
And Nancy straightened me out where I went to sub-primary out here, and I went here. First, second over there,
First and second over there.
third, fourth, and fifth in here.
Right.
And then my main memory of here is the fluoride treatments in the front office with Miss Blake, and they tasted horrible. They were so bad, and that's mainly in recess and my girlfriends and things that we did here. I mean, it was a good time, as Nancy says. There's nothing like Cape Elizabeth.
Right.
I mean, we grew up here.
They would take us on hikes, and they would convince you this was a large hike, and we were right behind the Methodist church. But the Ocean House Road did not go through there.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, the old Ocean House came up and
remember
over
that.
here and then out.
Came up
So
and
the
then
Yeah,
turned
it came
left
up
and
and
got
down.
dire.
Yep.
So from
Right.
this building, marching out and over the ledge and looking for everything on this gigantic hike, we were probably 300 feet away.
What grade are you talking?
Kindergarten.
Because in the second grade, we went all the way down to Beach Bluff Terrace with
Wow,
Mrs.
wow.
That's a big height.
Mrs. Roberts' class, right?
I had Mrs. Klish.
I had Mrs. Blish.
I had Mrs.
I had
Bush.
Mrs. Maxwell too.
He had-
But guess what? They weren't anywhere around here. Who went to kindergarten down at the church? I
Methodist
did.
Church.
Oh, no kidding.
All the kindergartens were down there.
That's right.
How about the time you went to sleep on the bus?
Oh, yeah, well, that was the only chance I could get a ride on a bus. Because I lived next to the school, so the rest of the time I had to walk.
Right.
It wasn't that far.
What's that?
It wasn't that far to walk. You were okay.
Oh, no, it was all right here. It was when I got to the high school, I had to hike. It was all right when school was right here.
Yes.
Riding the bus, wasn't it Mr. Dow who was
Clarence
the bus
Finney.
driver? Well, I remember Dow,
Yeah, Tom Dow.
Arthur Kennedy.
and
Gilly Jordan.
Billy Jordan.
That's right.
Mrs.
well,
White.
every other week, Mr. Dow would reverse, so you got home an hour earlier every other week, which was great.
His bus leak too.
Gilly Jordan's bus, when I lived on Fowler Road when I started high school. And we had a bus that you had seats that went down the sides as well as seats in the middle. Well, if you sat on one of those side seats on a rainy day, when he went around a corner, you'd get wet because the roof leaked.
They still leak today, you know.
They do?
Yep. They haven't changed
They
that.
haven't changed that. That's too bad.
They do
I
leak.
was on the bus going on Wells Road, and you knew everybody and everything, and then all of a sudden the bus came to a screeching halt. And it was one of the Dowdies had tried to kill himself, but had failed. The bus driver gets out and says, "For God's sakes," cuts him down and said, the kids all got back on the bus, and it was just
We moved.
Front addition of the house in 1881.
He built most of the houses.
Maxwell's, Murray's, and Jordans. You know.
That's your mother? Wow.
Wow.
That,
She was such a
I got-
sweet lady.
My
You
favorite
talk-
teachers.
you talk about photos. I got a photo of the town hall when it was first built in the George Hannaford farm, which owned all this land at one time. All of the Hannaford, all 9 of them lived right here, Hannaford brothers.
Right.
You can see Zeb's Cove, he used to keep his dories and stuff in Zeb's Cove, and he would just roll them up into the barn in the winter. And there was, when we had the playground, all it was out there was one net, one basketball backstop, baseball backstop. And that was all. We played marbles or baseball, but we could see Zeb's Cove, the water. We could see the beach at recess, I mean, because it was wide open.
You can tell from the picture of this building in Town Hall that there were not a lot of trees.
There wasn't any trees.
And that's why you've got mountain view
Yeah.
and ocean view. You can't see the mountains.
I'm sorry?
I said you have a picture of the building with no trees.
Yeah, there's no trees.
If you go down to Kettle Cove,
There's none of the trees, there's no trees.
in the morning, you can still see miles.
I got a picture my father took of the town hall in 1937 from the cupola, looking at the Bill Jordan and the Layton farm. And all there is between is Elizabeth Parker's got an apple orchard.
Yeah.
Dewey Wing's house here by the big oak tree was there, and the Jordan farm. And you can see the Layton farm and the Rich Brothers farm and the Jordan farm. Just looking down that way, because there was no trees.
No trees.
No trees. No trees.